evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast. This is kind of the last episode of the preseason and also the first episode of the new season. We are in a weird gray area of CRL right now where the big leagues haven't really started yet, but CCS has started and college football has started, so that's essentially the start of the fall semester for everybody. But before we get into all that, TJ, my friend, how you doing up there in West Virginia?
Hey, you know what? For once, the lighting is decent in the lab today. The weather's been okay. It poured like all get out yesterday up here. But you know, the mountains are always beautiful. I go home in a few days anyways, so I'm enjoying it. It's been fun. We just had some scrimmages today, just keeping on business.
I mean, everyone's getting back to it for the fall semester, really, which is why it feels like the start of the season. Even though NECC doesn't start for another week, the regional leagues don't start for another week or so. But we got show matches, we've got CCS to talk about, and we still got roster moves to talk about as well. Like as teams are starting to scrim, we still don't know the thirds of a couple of the top 30 teams right now, which is a little insane to me. I guess that's part of like they're not being an official cutoff for a lot of these rosters until the big leagues start. But we were still missing some big names.
Well, not only mentioning big names, but specifically within the programs that we talked so heavily about this summer, who now have been scrambling. I mean, some of the big ones that come to mind that we're going to talk about later this show as well. You look at the triangle of what has gone wrong between Winthrop, Baylor, and Fisher. That's going to be a big topic that we talk about later, not to mention with Royale's recent success in the 3v3 Champs Road event as well. By the way, I was in call with that team. I was playing coach for the weekend. Love those guys. Panda and Royales are so much fun to be around. He is going to be a very welcome addition to the CRL community. But as you guys know, based on last show, he is committed to Fisher when there was rumored he was going to be at Baylor. Percy is going to be in that conversation as well, but we still got a little bit before we get there.
Yeah, well, we'll talk roster moves in the second segment of the day, but I do want to start by going over a couple of the dates that I have put into the big Collegiate Esports calendar that you and I started kind of back in January. We need to get going again for the fall, but I did update by recommendation of Ian, if I can find where to share my screen here. I put in the start of the season for the major Alphabet Soup conferences, with NACE registration having closed this week. And then the SEL and NEL registration got extended, so that date there on September 3rd has been pushed back by a couple of weeks. But then you look at the registration dates for NECC, which closes next week, and same deal for Play Versus, with registration closing next week as well. And I did want to look over the numbers too, because with all of these leagues starting up in the in this month of September and the next couple of weeks, which actually ECAC starts at the end of September on the 29th, which is a seriously late day for one of the Alphabet Soup conferences. But registration numbers are kind of trickling in right now, and I'll pull those up in a second. But I don't think it's to any surprise to you, TJ, that NECC, when it comes to Rocket League registration, is still at the top.
Yeah, no shocker. Even with NACE deciding to make a pretty bold change and take out prize pools from competition this year, it didn't really seem to have a major change. All the teams and schools who are in that league are very committed, and it's the same way for NECC. With the return of Division 1 and also with Division 1 qualifiers that are going to be held, it's brought a lot of schools back into grinding a little earlier, back into getting registered earlier, overall kind of locking in a few weeks earlier, because the only school who is guaranteed a spot in Division 1 is Concord. And that is because, obviously, the guys won the tournament, or the LAN, I should say, this past spring. Also, I do want to clarify as well for anybody who's watching or sharing this information. If you are looking to register for NECC at any other date other than by tonight, you must go in their Discord and you must fill out the late registration form.
Okay.
The late registration form is what gives you the extension to September 11th. If you do not fill that out, you're going to have to open a ticket and you may not be allowed into NECC. But you could just get ahead and do it tonight as well. That's when regular registration closes.
And the things that I'm kind of looking at, and the reason why I had these web pages bookmarked is because I was trying to see if I could snipe any rosters that haven't come out publicly yet with their thirds, and there were some surprises. So in NECC, I think some of the notable names at the top. This is alphabetical for those that haven't noticed. Akron, both Akron teams are here. Concord, you already mentioned, getting that invite to Division One. Cumberland still here. Both Davenport University rosters, and then Daytona State, who won Division II East last season, which was a stacked second division. They had Ian on the roster back in the spring, and Ian is of certain fame when it comes to his hoops skill. But that Daytona State team with Ian was really good, and they beat solid teams like Florida, like Indiana Tech of last season in their run to a championship. And there's no Ian on the roster any longer, so that could be a notable move because they were one of those pop-up teams that came out of nowhere and had a really good semester, and now they might be shrinking back a little bit without Ian in the lineup.
Yeah, it's a shocker move to me as well because we haven't seen any sort of social media buzz from Daytona State this summer regarding recruiting or looking for more. So I hope that whatever happened with Ian, it was all done in house, and maybe Ian is still attending Daytona State, just not wanting to play collegiate. Which, if that's the case, then so be it. Also, we never know. Maybe Ian could only be playing the CRL quals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Those types of things happen in collegiate all the time. Be no shocker.
Yeah.
But that also goes to show that that team has a lot of faith in their backups and in the players who are next up. Because I think it's no surprise. It's Vegas, and if you don't mind scrolling back up, Epic,
Yeah.
I actually forget. It's Solus and
Solus.
Vegas. Those should be the two starters. And then I don't know who you pick next out of the list because I'm not familiar with any of them. But regardless, they must be SSL. They must be 1900 at least, or else Daytona State would not be putting this roster forward looking to get to Division II once again.
And that is a two-year school as well, if memory serves. Daytona State is, so we're worth keeping track of. I'm not sure how long Ian was there before, so that could also be a factor. But just something I noticed while scrolling through the pages, and we are running a bit of a shorter show tonight, just because the CCS Night Lights Invitational starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so none of our normal 90-minute to 2-hour shows this evening. You can get that next week when we record our next episode. But running through the NECC a little bit more, Kennesaw State Premier in here. Pretty notable roster with some names you may or may not have heard of before if you follow the CRL or RLCS scene. And then looking through, Northwood still here with their top two teams, Oklahoma Christian, Ole Miss. A lot of the same teams from Division One this past spring. So NECC, I don't think the complexion is changing a ton, but still a very stacked conference. And this isn't even the potential end of registration. There's still, I believe, some teams pending.
Well, and again, with late registration, things could change because one roster that seems to be missing, if you don't mind scrolling towards the bottom,
Yeah.
Epic, did I see St. Clair on the list,
Yes.
or are they not here yet?
No,
Okay.
they were
Must
there.
have
I
barely.
highlighted them, but I didn't talk about them.
Must have barely missed it towards the end there. I didn't see any other. There's a lot of Southeastern rosters and a lot of sleeper rosters. That's good to see. St. Clair Gold has changed slightly, as I believe this year, as it won't show you for some reason because the website's bugged. But this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know True is back in the lineup, and then is Fatal still playing with Gold, Bepic?
So this is unconfirmed, but I did put this out in my tweet about the potential rosters of the top 30, and I'm pretty sure it's True, Fatal Leaf, and Kipper, but I'm not certain. I haven't gotten confirmation on St. Clair Gold yet, but they are, I think, going to be a top 32 team regardless.
Yeah, true. Kipper has been moved up and down from Gold to Academy so many times that it's kind of hard to count. I'm actually very excited. I'm a Kipper believer. I'm very excited to see Kipper get a full chance. Also, who is that Northwood B team this year? Because I'm actually not familiar with who's next up in that program because they haven't had a true competitive B team in a few years. Oh, it's Christian playing. Thank you, Chippy. I appreciate it. Okay, so it's Christian
Kipper's
playing.
Gone. Kipper graduated. That's a little sad.
I should have remembered that too, because I remember us talking about it in May. But yeah, no, I am sad. Hopefully, we see Kipper around the scene a little bit more. But regardless, yeah, and Rhyolite's also popping in here. So I guess on that note, we should probably see. I didn't see either if Rhyolite and the boys are registered for NECC. I didn't see their name either when we were scrolling up and down this list.
I don't think Columbia does NECC. I think they're an ECAC school.
which that makes sense. Which we'll have to talk about them later this month. But that's also a roster move thing we're about to talk about, so I'll save it.
Yes, but also looking at registration numbers, this was kind of why we were talking about it. This is Play versus new league PCL. It was Playfly. They're at 18 teams right now, and that's for their Premier Division, which is kind of the equivalent to NACE's Varsity Division, and then 22 in the Ranked Division. And again, this is with registration still open until the 8th for Premier and the 15th for Ranked. So PCL not doing so hot so far.
Yeah, I made a tweet about it, kind of calling this out as slightly concerning as well, based off of Play versus Pass marketing statements. But obviously, I have to throw that on a huge disclaimer that registration is not done by any means. I
Yes.
believe that Play versus registration ends in, is it a week and a half or is it 2 weeks?
8th for Varsity and 15th for Ranked.
Okay, I was thinking of the ranked division. All right, so varsity on the 8th, with 3 days left to go. Things change, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to be very intrigued to see if schools do enter that, because last year when that league was called Playfly, it was really just Cumberland and Northwood fighting for a guaranteed CECC
Yeah.
spot and also going to the LAN in Texas as well. And then it was really nobody else. So what I wonder as we kind of get to that 8th deadline, do we see top 8 CRL schools register? And B, if they don't register, does that mean that Play Versus doesn't get a spot at CECC? Questions to be answered as we go.
Yeah, and those bids do come out later on in the fall, so I'm sure that's a consideration that CECC will take. Also, hi everyone in the chat right now. Chipmunk Man in my chat complimenting the stash. I don't know how long it's staying, by the way. It's starting to annoy me a little bit, but that's outside of it. St. Edward's coach Beastbound in the chat as well. Chip saying that Kentucky's doing ECAC, so there's a little interesting jump for you. Traditionally, actually don't know what Kentucky's done in the past.
Well, they've had a lot of budget changes recently because
Yeah.
of Gen G deciding to move into other schools. So I hope that as long as Kentucky is still able to compete, which I'm sure Chipmunk Man's got it all covered, we will see where they go. That's a nice little southeastern nugget of information to follow this year. UTK as well.
And comparing, I think NACE versus PCL are always going to be the two numbers you compare. 45 teams for Varsity Plus for NACE, and their registration has already closed. According to the calendar that I had up, Varsity Premier registration closes already earlier this week. So NACE is definitely winning the measuring contest. I think when it comes to that divorce they had with Playfly, was that last year?
Yes, it's the varsity standards that NACE brings to the table. People believe in NACE's mission, even with the leadership changes over the last year. NACE still does, and you have to give them their fair credit. They do the best job of establishing a bar for programs to set for the rest of their program to each campus. I mean, as you guys do or maybe don't know, NACE requires teams to be on campus if you're playing in the varsity divisions. And also, NACE opened up the club feature this year, which, again, we're going to talk about that way down the list. But there is some big conferences who actually decided to go through the NACE club feature. So that'll be a topic of later as well. But NACE doing well given the circumstances. They're never going to have the numbers NECC does, but they don't mind that because they charge more, they have a higher standard, et cetera, et cetera.
And ECAC's not doing too shabby either. 76 teams, and it is worth noting ECAC is traditionally those more obscure schools that don't have top-tier Rocket League programs. For the most part, there are some top-tier Rocket League teams that are in the ECAC, but because they offer so many games, a lot of those schools that want better bang for their buck will go through ECAC, so keep that in mind with the numbers. But I wanted to compare that going into this episode, just something a little bit different, looking at which leagues might be more important to follow when it comes to fall results. But I think now we can get into the roster moves as well, because we've still got some spicy ones that we didn't end up covering last week, and we can start with an obvious one that I guarantee you everyone here has already heard about. GarrettG will be going to Winthrop. How about that?
I mean, that's easily, I think, I want to say off rip it's the biggest move in Collegiate Rocket League history, but I don't know if I can confirm to that yet because obviously Garrett and his commitment to CRL is something that we don't know yet. I would imagine, knowing Garrett's history in competitive Rocket League, that he's going to bring his whole effort to it, especially given the fact that RLCS has kind of become more of a streaming side gig for him recently, playing with AJ and playing with 5UP as well in this past Champs Road. But no, I mean, this is easily huge. I'm really happy, honestly, for TCRL, who Winthrop
Yes.
decided they wanted TCRL to come back and they wanted to build around TCRL. Now, the way I envisioned that was going for the lower side of Rank X, but on the other side of that, Winthrop decided, let's just go ahead and let's grab the top. Percy and Garrett are two incredible additions.
Yeah, Winthrop doesn't do esports on a small scale. I think if they decide to go into an esport, they are going to really go into that esport. And I'm excited for the Winthrop Academy team. I got to watch them play on my stream a couple weeks ago, and then their run through CCS over the summer. And now they can kind of have that A team to learn from. I don't know about scrim against. That might be some one-sided scrims there, but those are some big names that are now in the Winthrop family. So I'm excited for those Academy boys as well to see how well they do. But you know, Winthrop, I think we'll talk about them a lot more in the power rankings part of this episode, which we'll get to later on. That's why you're going to see so many notifications on my Twitter compared to normal this week. I posted mine earlier, and those always are good for farming impressions. But something that has not been impression farming, as Mount Aloysius, I think, has quietly been building a solid roster. They did, well, the high school of Pig B announced that he is going to Mount Aloysius up in Pennsylvania, so staying in his home state. Pigby was one of the, if not the best player in the Pennsylvania High School Esports League. And then there's a graphic for this that I've seen, but Skippy as well will be going to Mount Aloysius with Pigby. So that is a good looking, underrated roster right now.
Yeah, and I believe Pig B is currently rank B plus right now. So this is now going to be a question, like, you look at Tater at St. Edwards, right?
Yeah.
You look last year, you look at Helix here at Concord. These players who are around rank B plus, rank A, when they come into CRL and they're partnered with rank X talent, they improve and look like completely new people top to bottom at the end of the semester when it's time for championships or the last few opens. So I'm really excited for Pigby, who obviously had a great high school career and gets to go to a Mount Aloysius program that we know, based off our experience, has been a great one for players. I haven't heard a single bad thing from Zekers or Rupus or any of them about that program. So top to bottom, I'm sure he's surrounded by a great coaching staff. And again, getting to play with Skippy, if Skippy's committed to CRL and obviously his RLCS career, they're going to learn a lot from him. And I don't know if we know who they're third yet either.
Not sure.
Yeah, we have no idea. So hopefully whoever it is, they'll also be low SSL. They'll get to learn, maybe B plus as well. And they could be a dark horse team.
Chippy said that they did scrim against Mount Aloysius. So Chippy, if you wouldn't mind sharing that third, I would love some confirmation on that. I was talking to the Mount Aloysius director, and he was like, yeah, we fly under the radar over here. And so I didn't ask further questions about who their third might be. So Chippy might have that info for us in Twitch chat. But moving on to a negative roster change, kind of, unless you're a big C Money fan. Ole Miss announced that S5 Cosmic will not be joining them for the fall, but will be in the spring. So a delayed roster move that we kind of got a preview of during pre-jump, but C-Money is returning now to the starting lineup with Lunar and Stealth at Ole Miss. So maybe not much is changing for Ole Miss this semester. I would expect more of the same, but then come the spring, they get that boost of integrating Cosmic.
Yeah, we really don't know much about what happened behind the scenes, because this Ole Miss roster was probably the only roster in the entire CRL top 12, top 16 that was grinding hard. Going into this summer. They showed it with the colleague pre-jump event win.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks after that, we started seeing Lunar tweet out saying, I can't say it on stream, but obviously he said a certain word and then CRL after it. And I don't know if it was a CRL related issue that is like Ole Miss got information, then Cosmic decided to leave and decide to commit in the spring, or if there was an issue with Cosmic's maybe scholarship to Ole Miss. We don't have any idea, right? But
Yeah.
I feel bad for that program, but I still know that they are going to get Cosmic in the spring as long as things still continue as what Adam said. So it's going to be okay. And it starts this conversation as well about this theme that what has gone on with how good the recruiting was this summer versus the back half of that, where teams are struggling to get these players to sign to their rosters, and then also to get locked in for the spring because, and again, we're already in the roster move segment, so I'm going to bring up the conversation again.
Yeah.
Baylor, Fisher, St. Edwards, all teams who didn't find third men, at least as of right now, or in Fisher's case, struggled to find a second from outside of the school as well. So it was almost too good to be true this summer, both Ole Miss and some of these other programs.
I mean, when I see something like this where the commitment has been delayed to the spring, this is pure speculation, but I would figure it's either a financial thing with getting aid to attend the school. Maybe you were late on a registration for a scholarship or something like that, but you can get it in the spring, or it's just a personal thing where Cosmic maybe has something this fall that he would rather not be in university during, and so just postponing it to the spring. I don't know if it goes as deep as something that the program is struggling with, but I'm sure we can find that out having conversations at lands and such. But I mean, keeping along the trend, you mentioned Baylor, and that kind of developed yesterday with Adam Stanley sending a tweet that was LF1 for spring when quote retweeting the Baylor Esports post about Andy and Hoxer joining, and this makes me think, and I have some reason to believe this, that the expected third or expected thirds, the list of them, all fell through, and so we may see an OSO Esports at the club at Baylor have a player pulled up to the starting lineup.
Yeah, from what we've heard, that's the most likely result, but I do hate it for Baylor because I know that this program has had so much happen since last spring whenever the decision was made to turn this esports program into a varsity sport at Baylor. And you could see it in these photos. Baylor really has pulled out all of the stops, like as in getting
Yes.
Andy and Hoxer, as in doing the graphic work, as in working on a lab that's, I think, maybe a year out from being finished or something like that. I mean, this is big. Like even the
Like,
small
this is
things, like putting your
crazy.
players, putting your players on a board right outside of your student center. Or I don't know if that's the athletic center or not actually. But regardless, like Baylor has put so much into it, and I love Coach Stanley and everything that he's doing. So I still hope they can find a decent third because they do still have time. Granted, now it was less like last episode we said they probably had about 2 weeks to
Yeah.
realistically get somebody down. I don't know when Baylor started school, but at least for your collegiate leagues, there is room. There's about 7 days ish of room, and there's the Power Esports Conference they compete in. So there is a world where if they find somebody late who can still attend the school, they might only compete in NECC and PEC and the Opens as well. I don't know. I hate it for them either way because I know that they wanted Percy and they wanted Royales, and both those deals fell through, which is wild to
Yeah.
me.
I'm pretty sure they were banking pretty heavily on Percy going to Baylor. I think that was pretty set in stone as far as recruiting gets set in stone over the summer. But Winthrop had a better offering for Percy, and so he's on what could be a top 5 roster for the fall, which I can't blame him there. And I'm interested to see where Baylor does go with this because you could have a situation where you have a student at Baylor that just happens to be like a GC3, maybe low SSL, because it's a pretty big school, and then all of a sudden they're playing with Hoxer and Andy. Like isn't that just how fast CRL can move sometimes?
Well, and again, it's the pipeline that we saw from last year and coming into this year. There is a lot of rank B, which I'm counting as SSL level talent,
Yeah.
who are going to develop next to these players. And from what I have been told personally from Coach Stanley's side, I believe the player is above 1900 who's coming in. It is not an OSO esports player from last year. I know that for certain.
Okay.
And I have their real name, but I don't have their gamer tag. So I'm not going to say it
Fair enough.
because no one's going to understand it. But fun fact, it is a version of my name. So that's kind of cool. But, best of luck to that Baylor side and to that third.
All right. Well, Big Timmy is going to step in real nice in that Baylor lineup. But to answer chat question, Baylor is just NACE, I do believe. I was doing some snooping on the NACE signups, and Baylor University has signed up, but it's the OSO Esports team led by Pac-Man. Shout out Pac-Man in all of this, of course. So, yeah, PEC as well, though. As I also saw the PEC lineup sheet, but it didn't have Baylor in it, and I was like, man, I was this close to figuring out who their third might be. So we'll have that for a future episode, I'm sure. Obviously, with with the season starting up soon and rosters need to become public at some point. But interesting story developing over there in Waco. But other roster moves that I don't have graphics for. One, Missouri University. Bubs is back in the starting lineup. He's been playing in CCS with the Missouri team, and I DM'd him about it. And he's saying he is back to starting for Missouri Rocket League after, if you don't remember, posting a big tweet about how he was retiring from Rocket League and playing Valorant. So we might have a little bit of Bubs for the foreseeable future, which I told him this, and I'll say it again, CRL is better with him in it.
I also think, well, first of all, yes, having Bubs in general is awesome. I can't wait to see them around. Hopefully we'll get to see them at LANs. But after Bubs originally stepped away from Mizzou Rocket League and decided to pursue Mizzou Valorant instead, this kind of came as a shocker. Not to mention that with Bubs back on that Mizzou side, I think a Bubs on 10 past 2 with the Missouri roster, who could also very likely be on 10 or 20 past 2, they unironically are still a top 32 team.
Yeah.
And they will be a dark horse school. I think it's going to be most similar to a Southern Miss, but with a higher ceiling. Whereas they'll win some random game, but then they could also lose to the next GC3s in a best of 3. But they're not going to care. They're going to have fun, from what we understand at least. But things can change as well. If Missouri believes they have a chance to go to, maybe it's a boost on the beach, maybe it's another regional style LAN. I think that they can lock in when they need to, as they've shown they can do that before. So for Bubs, regardless, I just hope that he has a good time, because we know that his heart's at least in Valorant.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see him, at least for the time being. So we'll keep an eye on them. They are playing in CCS, which is worth noting, and we'll see where else they do end up competing with that lineup specifically. But other roster moves, this is kind of at a lower tier of CRL, kind of, but UTK, Tennessee, has integrated Joe Burrow back into the starting lineup for the... like, it's the technical B team, but they play as the A team everywhere other than like big events like LANs, like BBB. And so it's Jobro, Kung, and Jeezy playing together, and they were playing in CCS this week and actually looking pretty good. They beat Indiana and they beat Pittsburgh, which are pretty good names to be taking so early in this lineup's history.
Yeah, and again, I just talked about Bubs being on low hours and being good. Jobro is also a great talent, kind of in the southeast portion of Rocket League. Again, he could show up on 5 past 2 and still be consistent and be a weapon for that team. To briefly TLDR the UTK rosters, they're going to roll with separate rosters for LAN versus who's actually competing in NECC. So you will see Jobro most commonly running with Kung and running with Jeezy. I guess just Jeezy now, over in NECC, and I think that's the only league, NSCL obviously, that they're going to be playing in. But whenever we see a UTK team try to make a run at LANs, like for example, Scenic City Invitational, that roster will actually be Taibu, Jobro, and Shaka, who again will be a roster that is mostly on 10 or 20 past 2. Shaka isn't even going to install the game until a few weeks before that LAN, and I can't say I blame him at all. So that UTK roster, just similar to Mizzou, they're going to show up, they're going to upset some random teams, but then they could also lose to GC3s. So it'll be fun to watch.
That sounds about right for them. That's kind of been the UTK way for a little while after that big roster split with Taibu, Jobro, and Crisp, that fall team last year. But what else? What else do we have? Scenic City Invitational attendees are in chat as well as on screen. I will most likely be there. TJ, I think you're coaching.
I am.
Yeah. So you might see some of us there in Chattanooga. That's turning into a big LAN that we will talk about in a moment. And then last roster move, though, we can just briefly touch on this. But Louisiana, who was a decent team, I think, skirting with the top 48 last spring, will be without Juro this fall season. So missing their best player. So they might take a bit of a tumble there. Juro is a notable name to be taking a semester off.
Juro is also, in my opinion, the best player on that roster. Granted, they were a very even team, but I think if you're talking about X factors, Juro is easily the one who controls that. But you also got to remind me who their third is. I know Lost is still going to be there, and then it is Jackson, yes. Which, again, they looked great last year, and I think their sub, if my memory serves correct, is at least GC3. So you'll see Louisiana making a run probably in CCS. I don't think we're going to see them get back to top 48 this fall, even with or with the sub. I think that there is a funny world that if they have another SSL, who knows, right? Because if Louisiana completely whips their play style into a different shape, that changes everything for that team. And we'll see them in NECC too as well. So I'm just excited to see kind of what they're able to make out of this semester, and also wishing Juro the best as well. We're excited to see him come back.
And what I heard is that they're not playing much without Juro. So I don't know if
That's
they're
also
going to be
fair.
super locked in for the fall. But regardless, that's the roster move segment. We will have a comprehensive list of all of the roster moves during our episode next week. So stay tuned for that as we really get into the fall season. We'll break all of that down for you. But CCS results are next up, since those are the only results we really have outside of my show matches, which haven't I wouldn't say been serious quite yet. Maybe outside of WCTC beating the new look Shawnee State 4-2 this past Tuesday, which is a good result for WCTC. And Shawnee State didn't look half bad with Spooky, so I think that's my takeaway from that show match. But I'm gonna scroll through the CCS Twitter. As I think Nations posted the majority of the good ones, but Kentucky beating Louisville is a nice in-state rivalry. And TJ, you could feel free to interrupt me as you want to talk about some of these results, because I'm just going to kind of run through them. We can sum it up at the end.
You got it.
Kentucky 3-1 over Louisville. Good for them. Another in-state rivalry. Washington beating Washington State, which is why I love the non-conference play. Like, we get some good in-state rivalries. Then Ball State beating Virginia Tech. Old Dominion over Western Kentucky. A lot of Game 5s to open it up as Mexico State beat New Mexico. Another state over main team. And then here's the one we can talk about. Tennessee over Indiana. I got to watch this one, and UTK went back and forth with Indiana, and it wasn't pretty at all times. But they clutched up in Game 5 overtime. It was a great series.
You're going to have to remind me who is playing with MST at Indiana this year as well, because I know they had roster turmoil for the last few months of the spring. It's who's next to him?
Pablo and Boomia, I believe.
Wow, okay, so it is a brand new roster around MST. Okay, so I guess that changes my original point. I was going to say, this is still a great win for Tennessee, don't get me wrong. But I think my bar for Indiana was a top 64, top 50 contending school at their peak last year. But that does stink. I don't know what ranks that the other two are, but I would imagine they are low SSL to be competing in a 5-game series with Tennessee. Yeah, I have no doubts about that. And I love MST as well. And me and him were just talking about that, like helping them out with some scrim stuff earlier today. So I, love that program top to bottom. But a big win for Tennessee regardless. I mean, we have waited so long to see a Tennessee roster break back into the news ever since that, obviously, that aforementioned, from long ago, 2-1 over Northwood in a CRL Open, which we're just going to kind of let that float in the air.
Legendary.
And then also Volan wins as well from previous years. Even BBB wins from previous years as well. So who knows? Maybe with almost a completely shaken up UTKA team, with Jobro coming back with the B team guys, maybe this is their year in CCS. Maybe we can see UTK return to a top 4, return to a top 8. This is a really good start.
And Twitch chat was quick to correct you, but Pablo is returning with MST. So Boomia is the new player with Indiana. So still decent result for sure for UTK. But we'll move along. There's the same post with retweets as Nation retweets as much as possible to get those impressions going. Bedlam ended up in favor of Oklahoma State, so another cool rivalry. And this is why you love CCS, is because you get these rivalry games like this during non-con play. And then during conference play, you get your standard rivalries as well. Purdue beating Colorado. And I did see a tweet from Colorado where they were like, this is our temporary roster. So I think the Buffaloes are still figuring it out, but I'm glad to see Purdue is still going to Game 5s. And then those are the notable results that Nation tweeted about. UTK also 3-0'd Pittsburgh in CCS. That's a decent result. And if you have any other points you want to make about CCS right now, TJ, I'll go find some more results in the Discord.
I mean, off the top of my head, there isn't too much that I've seen that really shocked me. Over in the SEC, I obviously hear a lot from both UTK and the UGA guys, and I know that both of those teams are off to a semi-decent start. It really, in general, on that Purdue point, it stinks to see that a lot of the rosters that me and you started with, or at least I started with whenever I came into CRL, we kind of we're losing a lot of those guys. We're seeing brand
Yeah.
new iterations of all these big school names, and it really does stink. But in the meantime, I'm gonna let you thank Nutty and Somber real quick. W subs.
Yeah, guys, appreciate the subs, fellas. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'm gonna mute the alerts so we don't have that in the recording. But much love, gentlemen. Thanks for supporting the podcast and the streams. We have a good time over here. But yeah, Nation shouted it out. I knew he would have something on deck. Florida with Sap playing in place of True Raid and K Frost, who have been thirds over the course of the last 4 months. With Hemi and Larry, they 3-0'd Arizona. Yeah, they swept Arizona. So that Florida team, I mean, they were a top 48 roster with True Raid as the third, and I think Sap is an upgrade to Raid. As much as I do love me some True Raid, I think Sap's a definite upgrade. So Florida should still be in the top 33 to 48 range, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're on the same page because my very first statement was going to be a 3-0 over Arizona with Sap in the lineup is not a surprise to me. That Florida roster in CCS should be top 8 locked, in my opinion. They should win the SEC. I have no doubts in my mind they're not going to struggle. Maybe UTK could give them a game, but I still think that the way that Larry's been playing over the last year, the way that Hammy's always looks, and with Sap's history as well, I don't see that team struggling back. Or sorry, Mizzou has Bubs. Why do I keep forgetting that Mizzou brought Bubs back? I'm so used to the days that Mizzou had their club team. Forgive me, as I spent last night for about an hour going over the CRL top 32, so I haven't gotten my knowledge too corrected on the rest of CCS. But Bepic, you bring up this 11 too as well. This is a funny tweet.
Yeah, Nation wanted this. For the record, I don't stand for Cleveland State hate now that Haz is going there, but Nation wanted me to bring this up. So for all you Cleveland State fans out there, this was Nation's doing 11-2 against CSU Northridge, and that's rough.
I mean, what do you do, right? I mean, Cleveland State, obviously, this is not, if my memory serves me correct, once again, Falcon was not, like, this was not the actual Cleveland State A team where it was Falcon, Haas, and one more, I believe. Or Haz, however it's said, H-A-Z. But there's no way that they lost 11-2 in a game.
I don't know.
Please, Bepic.
I'll be honest, I was not watching Cleveland State versus CSU Northridge. I think that was happening while I was still traveling from PAX. So the
And who's on that other who's on CSU Northridge?
Oh,
Nation obviously has told us that Sip is the only returning member, but who is on that Northridge roster?
So Cleveland State is Cipricate, Lobo, and Haz. I believe that's their starting three. CSU Northridge, I have no idea. That's one of those teams that I unfortunately don't follow. So Nation can get you there, but we do need to move along because I imagine we'll spend some time defending our power rankings. But real quick, for those of you wondering what's happening after the podcast, I am streaming the CCS Nightlights Invitational Tournament. This is part of non-conference play for the CCS, and it's an invite-only tournament where it is a 4-team bracket where the winners play the grand finals, the losers of semis play a consolation match so that everyone gets 2 series out of it. So UNC Charlotte versus Texas A&M, a nice little southeastern matchup, and then Maryland versus San Diego State. I tried to pick 2 teams that were as far away as humanly possible from each other to play in the semifinal number 2. So that's happening at 7 Eastern time, and why we are rushing just a little bit compared to how we normally are. So TJ, you got any predictions for that? Who's winning it? Just real quick.
Oh, okay. Predictions? I thought we were just gonna go ahead and move on. All right. So it is San Diego State, Maryland, Charlotte. Who's the 4th?
Maryland, Charlotte, Texas A&M.
Was it Texas A&M?
Yeah.
Okay. I was interacting with your chat. Apologies.
Right.
Give me San Diego State versus Texas A&M in an upset over Charlotte. This is going to make sense when we talk about power rankings. I'm pretty low on that team this year, unfortunately. Give me A&M upset over Charlotte. Give me San Diego State comfortably over Maryland, and then give me San Diego State. Is it best of 7? I'm guessing
Best of 5. It's still part of CCS.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Give me 3-1 San Diego State. Final.
Okay, San Diego State wins it according to TJ. I think I back that. They're definitely the favorites in that bracket. But all of you will hear me talking about that way more in about 45 minutes time. So let's move right along. We've got some events to talk about upcoming, and yeah, lots of LANs. TJ, you might be familiar with one. It's called DreamHack Atlanta. What's going on here?
Well, perfect. I feel like I'm the person to come to when it comes to this event. I would hope so, because Mr. Dojafrat, my co-business partner, is running the business side, and I get to worry about all the fun stuff, like talking about it. So, yes, we are back for year 2. The lovely team at DreamHack has decided, you know what, we think Collegiate's pretty cool. So a big shout out to Lindsay and Joe on the DreamHack staff and marketing team, who believe in our vision to bring this back. Also, shout out to Hana and Vod on our cover in a beautiful photo, by the way. Hana rocking that awesome blue jacket and Vod looking pretty dang sexy as well. So yes, as you can see, the tweet did well, which is awesome, because that means that we know that you guys are excited about DreamHack just as much as we are. You will be seeing me and Bepic there, almost guaranteed, as long as travel does not ruin any of our chances. Yeah, I fully plan on having both of us there once again. You will hopefully also see the 2 people on screen right there doing Rocket League as well, Vod and Nabi, once again. And we're working on the talent crew, and you'll know then. But the form for the invite, to get applied to the event to then get an invite, it closes September 10th. So please go check out my Twitter. It is on there. It's also under that original DreamHack tweet. So you can go to either DreamHack NA on Twitter, or you can go to DJTJRL on Twitter. You'll find the form on there. And again, it closes on the 10th. You got 5 days before invites start going out. And all I'm going to say is it looks like it may be a CRL open at this point. I mean, it's looking stacked. I can't talk about who exactly is on the list. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, there's one school that I'm currently in the lab of that's going to be there. But outside of that, I'll let you guys kind of let your imaginations run wild. It should be a really fun event. Can't wait to go back to Atlanta.
And I have put the form in my chat for those players that are watching right now that want to sign up and pester your director to allocate some land travel funds to you. But that is the weekend of Halloween, Chip. So
yes.
31st is the Friday, then it's November 1st and 2nd. So we might be wearing costumes on that
we will.
During the weekend.
Saturday we will.
Well, we'll see what
I am
happens.
Forcing.
But other LAN, this is another big one, kind of turning into the marquee LAN of the early fall season. This is the Scenic City Invitational, and we've already talked about it on previous episodes. It's a 3-day event hosted by the University of Tennessee Chattanooga, and it is kind of stacked so far. I was talking to these guys today about the teams they've got, but I'll go off the Start GG page to talk about the rosters that are signed up already. They're looking for 20 total teams, so again, if you haven't already talked to these guys about joining the LAN, then do the same thing where you contact Nutty's in chat right now, K4 McMaster as well is something you got to talk to about it, and then pester your director about allocating some LAN travel funds. But yeah, this is kind of stacked and coming up in 3 weeks time, TJ.
The UTC team is pretty close to myself and the Concord admin. We work pretty hand in hand on a lot of events. The UTC Chattanooga staff has done such an incredible job with not only making this LAN happen, with HughFest dropping off the map as well. Nobody was really able to make something happen, and then Scenic City pops up. Now, granted, it's not as early as Hugh was, but I think that's better for a lot of these teams as well, who now will get a full month and a half by the average start date of most schools. You get about a month / maybe you give some extra weeks there to really get your schedule down, really get used to campus, and then obviously get used to grinding once again. So this event should be an absolute blast. A lot of rosters making their big collegiate debuts. And then, of course, some returning friends of the CRL top 8 as well. I'm very excited to be there. Bepic, I pray you're going to be there. I hope so, that we all see you there. But you should see... Okay, good. Then you'll see both of us, hopefully, if you go. You'll see me over on the playing in the pit with my boys, and then you'll see Bepic, obviously, just being Bepic, as wonderful as that is at every LAN. We need a Bepic, so it'll be fun. I'm really excited. Chattanooga's beautiful, too.
Yeah, well, a cool aquarium as well. If any of you go and have downtime, definitely stop by the Tennessee Aquarium over there. But yeah, it's the Scenic City Invitational, and we will cover that extensively as it comes up, as it starts in about 3 weeks from today, actually. So I can link that one as well. Let me do that in chat for you, Chip. There you go. It's the Start GG page. But another LAN, the Beltway Boost LAN. We've also covered this already, but Qualifier 3 has teams signed up, and it's got a couple of CRL rosters in it. It's got St. Clair Green, St. Edwards, University of North Dakota, and Concord decided to change their name. TJ, why on earth are you guys not Concord?
Okay, all I'm going to say is that there is legality reasons about why
Okay.
we are not representing Concord. It is a non-CRL event, which makes us more of a pickup team than a official collegiate team. So as far as you guys are concerned, we're not Concord. We're just some guys who are
Okay.
playing together at the same location who have two students who are across the pond. So anyways, don't worry about that. We're going to play and we're going to hopefully see some of the other teams there. I'm really excited to see St. Edwards and St. Clair get in the mix as well. St. Clair just got back to North America about a
Yep.
week and a half ago. This is their first major tournament since they played overseas in the colleague pre-jump. So now we get to finally see them outside of Champions Road really hit their stride. So should be a really good tournament. There's not a lot of spots at that LAN either. If you don't make this third qualifier, you have to go to DC to play in the in-person LCQ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna be a mess at that third qual, but should be cinema.
And so make sure you are staying up to date with that. Again, it's not a CRL only event. So if you just want to put together a pickup roster like the boys formerly known as Concord, then make sure you get on that. But another small one I wanted to touch on. This is something I was tagged in, and so I'll publicize it. But Coach Tony here has advertised a Southwestern United States middle school, high school, and collegiate event. So if you are a Southwestern team that wants to get involved with this, I don't know much about it, but the West needs more events, and so this is one of those. I would highly recommend talking to Coach Tony about this. TJ, I don't know if you know much about it, if you want to comment on it.
This is actually the first time hearing about it because I
There
didn't
we
get
go.
to read the our little pre-show doc. So no, this is awesome. I mean, this is a very niche community, both in collegiate esports and high school as well. So big shout out to Tony and his entire crew for making this happen. I'm very excited to keep in touch with all that.
All right, in that case, let us move right along. There was some NACE news to talk about, and give me a second to get the link properly up. But NACE has introduced club play, and TJ, do you have good info on this? Because I haven't looked too much into it. But you were talking about conferences running through it, and I know it's a pilot program for them where they're trying to allow schools to create their own mini conferences among NACE. If you want to take it from there.
Yeah, so I have to be completely honest. Whenever I first saw NACE introduce this club play feature and I sat down with my admin team to read through the legality and the mix of all the details, I was not expecting it to really go off in collegiate at all. I was very confused as to what it was supposed to be, but then they actually started partnering with official D1 conferences, and that's what I was referring to. So ESC, which you guys will most notably know as Ball State and Akron's D1 conference in esports, they have decided to merge with NACE through this club program, not as a NACE varsity conference, but through a club varsity conference. It's very confusing. They are technically by, I guess, NACE law put in the varsity premier tab, but they're not all going to be thrown with the other varsity premier teams. It's a section of varsity premier, which is the first time NACE has really done that by conference. So it's a cool addition, especially for the future of Division One. Northeastern's in that conference as well, by the way. But it's a little confusing, but it's cool that they get to be in that. And they actually start, I think, next week with their games.
All right. Well, there's some more NACE news. They've really been making waves in the last couple of weeks with I think beneficial changes and initiatives that shows that they are trying to move collegiate esports along. So I've always kind of been a little bit skeptical of NACE because at the start when I was just really getting into collegiate, I was kind of against isolationism, and I think NACE with their barriers to entry are I guess inherently isolationist just because there are club programs that can't participate. But I think what NACE is doing is really good on a lot of levels. So good work, NACE. I will stay following, and I am excited to see what these changes introduce because they're kind of turning into a bit of a leader when it comes to everyone kind of making moves into the frontier that is collegiate esports. And so the changes they're making, I am a big fan of. So good on NACE. That's all I've got to say about the club pilot program.
Your chat also brought it up. We get Maction in Nace. So them being set apart in their own division or their own league is a plus for all the Mac followers. Even though they're not officially with the Mac, they're with Nace. But very cool. Very excited to see. And I expect that Akron Ball State final to be even closer than it's been in the past. With what I've seen in this offseason, with how great 5-Ups looked, with how great Guh has looked as well, who's gotten a lot of big RLCS experience over the last split, and also with Champs Road as well. So should be fun to watch.
All right, well, let's move along. We have about 15 minutes left to go here. So we've got our accolades of the week, and this will bleed into the ranking section of the show. So accolades of the week, for those that don't know, we haven't done in a while because there hasn't been much going on in Collegiate over the last several months when we've done episodes. But TJ and I like to pick a team and or player of the week to highlight. And I'll start with mine because we've already talked about them a little bit. My team of the week is UTK. Tennessee is shaking things up again. They have kind of integrated their old A-team player with Joe Bro into the new wave of players, the top of Tennessee, and beating Pittsburgh and Indiana to start off your CCS play. That's 2 thumbs up for me. So UTK is turning back into a team to watch again because Joe Bro was looking dominant at times in that Indiana series. So that's my team of the week. My player of the week is Gio, which is a player you may not have heard if you don't watch my show matches or follow WCTC at all in esports. They're a Wisconsin team that I think it's probably the best team in Wisconsin right now and will be battling for a spot in the top 32 when it comes to CRL rankings this season. Gio is a freshman there alongside Neeks and Ty, and the dude is one of the best frontmans that I've seen in a little bit in CRL when it comes to like the 30 to 48 range. So he is turning into one of my favorite players to watch very quickly in the CRL scene, and they are 2-0 in show matches on my stream in the last 3 weeks. So shout out to WCTC and Gio if you wanna take over from there, TJ.
I hope Gio is in chat as well, because you actually probably do know who Gio is if you've been on Twitter in the last month. I'm not going to get into the reasons about why I know who Gio is on Twitter. We've had some fun private conversations, but you can just go on Twitter and look for yourself. And also, it matches because my team is both my player and my team are very show match related. I also went with WCTC for my team of the week. Granted, I know that they haven't been in any major, or haven't had any major league results, but I think of all the upcoming teams who've been grinding this summer. Obviously, Ole Miss was the first one, and then it was a long silent pause with no real results. And WCTC, one of the new faces, I think, as a roster who at their peak could push towards that top 16, maybe even go on to upset. Well, I guess I say upset by law, but I'm not exactly sure based on our power rankings. Maybe they get a St. Edwards. Maybe they grab a win over Fisher. It's teams like that who are kind of disheveled right now, who I think they can really make a stand and really showcase their talents to. But with how crazy CRL has gotten this summer, there's no guarantees. So we'll have to see whenever they actually hit the pitch in a CRL event, once that announcement comes through at Worlds as well. So that's my team of the week. And for my player, I know that everyone back home is going to love my pick of player of the week. If you did watch Bepic's last few show matches, you saw UGA and you saw one player who led the way the entire way through. It's no surprise that I'm going with a dog. It's Meared. That's my boy Jacob. If you're like me and Bepic and you follow basically the top 120, top 200 of CRL, and you know the Southeast and you know these kind of niche teams, the difference of UGA of spring 25 versus fall of 25 is night and day. They've looked great in CCS as well, and whenever they begin conference play this week, I expect them to carry that, and I unironically think that UGA roster could go top 5 in the SEC, maybe even top 4. We will see. That's me. That's a hot take, I know, but I'm going to stand on it. I think UGA needs to beat Arkansas, and I think it's doable, and then they get it from there. That's my hot take. That's my fun. Wait till we get to power rankings. It gets worse, guys. But anyways, I'm high on UGA. I'm high on Meared.
You chose a very short speed bump in shouting out Arkansas right there for UGA, but that's all right. I'm willing to shout out Meared as well, as he did look good in that show match against Kennesaw State. White, I think, is the color they've settled on. But let's talk the top of CRL now. For those that are here, maybe from my posting of my top 32 earlier, I'm gonna put them on screen. I apologize, TJ. I wasn't able to make your list look as fancy as mine, so it's just going to be a Google Sheets list.
That's
So
fine.
everyone get ready for that. My power rankings are on the left. TJ's are on the right. So everyone,
Here we go.
soak them in. There you go. Our perfect preseason rankings is what is covered up by that by your top 32. You want to start and maybe talk about where your
Oh.
head's at with the top 8?
Yeah, so I will say this as well. When I tweet my list out after this show, there is 2 or 3 teams I'm going to move around just because after seeing some rosters that we've talked about in the last 24 hours, I've changed my mind on a few.
Okay.
But the top 8, I feel pretty dang good about the top 8. Maryville, obviously, if you guys did not watch Champions Road, our very own Crispy played with Wave and Speed. They got second place, losing to CMOS Panda Reales, which is obviously Concord, No School, and then Fisher. So my take on Maryville is that I think they're going to be contenders, obviously, but with EXO going to Worlds, with Speed getting back into the flow of things a little later than Wave has, that's why I have this roster lower than top 2. Northwood after CECC really kind of dug their own grave because they really struggled. It was the worst that we've seen them potentially ever. Which again, it's Northwood. They're going to come back. I have no concerns or issues about that. But if they come into this spring like they did to end, or sorry, if they come into this fall like they ended the spring, I think Winthrop will jump them. I think Winthrop on base level first open could jump Maryville as well. But that top 5, I feel really good about. Akron, Ball State, West Virginia, Cumberland, those are all schools that I think are going to have a little bit of D1, D2, or not D2, D1 for 3 of those schools, and then obviously Cumberland. They're going to have a nice rivalry down there. I don't know if any of them can punch through. I think the team that I have to pick with the biggest capability is Ball State. But again, with the way CRL is, with all these new teams, I just don't know yet. I'm only going off of the scrims that I've gotten to watch so far, which isn't much.
So do you think the cutoff is kind of like top 7 where you see the wall sort of being built between the top and the bottom, top 6? Because I think I don't know. I think where we're at right now, even with the talent levels at the very top, we will still see upsets of teams like Davenport, Boise, Columbia, Baylor maybe, Ole Miss, but I think those teams can still win at the top.
I don't disagree at all. I think the hard cutoff with EXO being at Worlds for the first few months, well, in terms of like getting involved with Maryville, going to be gone for the first few months, I think the cutoff moves to top 4. And I feel very confident in St. Clair, Concord, Northwood, and Winthrop, who by base level at their floor, I think clears pretty confidently over the rest of the list, other than a Ball State. And I would throw West Virginia. That's my sleeper team in the top 8 easily. I think West Virginia could jump a lot of those schools as well. I've been a Daunt/Matter fan forever, and I've always been an advocate for Matt's play. I expect now that he's a starter alongside Gyro, they're going to be incredible together, and I think they could really dominate a team like Cumberland and Akron as well.
And for those that are audio-only listeners, I'll run through kind of our consensus top 10. As we both have St. Clair number 1 for obvious reasons with them winning CRL. Even though they didn't have a good performance at CECC, I think CRL is still the competition, and winning it still gives you a big edge when it comes to online competition. And then our top 3 are Maryville and Concord. I'll read through my order, but I know you have them switched. And then Akron, Northwood, Winthrop with a consensus next 3. Then Ball State, Cumberland, West Virginia, Davenport to round out the top 10. And then I've got a controversial pick with Columbia being at number 11. I had a lot of people tell me that this is this shouldn't be the case, but I had Columbia in the top 15 at the end of last spring, and with Rhyolite replacing Cryptic, I think that's a big upgrade. And if that team is grinding properly, and if they are competing at the level that I know they can, I think 11 is a reasonable spot for them, considering the ups and downs that we saw out of Boise State, Oklahoma Christian, and Ole Miss throughout the spring.
We're in similar boats. I think top 15 is a safe bet. I don't know if I would go as far to say that Rhyolite is a large upgrade over Cryptic. Granted, Cryptic kind of wasn't grinding as heavily, so I understand the point. And I'm a Rhyolite believer. We both definitely are. We've seen Rhyolite dominate on the East Coast in the Southeast
Yep.
for a while now, over the last year. So I think they have the potential to be top 11. I don't see them breaking through Cam Brock and whoever they decide as their third, most likely Bolte, if I had to guess. I don't see them breaking through that threshold, but against the rest of the inconsistent pack, which will be Boise, OC, Ole Miss, and whoever else you want to throw up there, I agree with that take. So I'm willing to hear out top 15. I'm willing to hear out top 12. I don't know if I go further than that. So I actually like where you have them.
All right, I appreciate that. Gusky was also a big fan of where I had them. He made sure to let me know about that. So shout out to Columbia. They're a favorite sleeper pick of mine. But then Baylor at 15 for me. I don't have the numbers for your show, which I can actually change.
I can grab them real quick as well.
I can. There we go.
I have Baylor at 15.
Okay, so we both have them at 15. I think not knowing their third is why we don't have them higher than that. Because even though you have Andy and Hoxer, like the third that they get really depends, or really will affect how high they can go this season, which is just where CRL's at right now. Even a core of two like Andy and Hoxer can still be brought down a little bit by a third that if they're not a 2K player, I don't know if I feel comfortable putting them close to the top 10.
I think, again, this is one of those teams I think I'm going to change in my rankings now knowing who the third is. I think I'm probably going to drop them lower than 15. On paper, TNT, Kronovi, and Flitz should have no problem going against two fellow rank X's and then what is assumed to be a rank B, potentially a rank C SSL level player. I don't know where that line goes. I can't tell how hard the carry can be with Andy and Hoxer because obviously there's no questioning their talent, but that's how CRL is nowadays. It's like Michigan State, Kennesaw State, that entire top 20, those are teams who are all ranked B plus on average or higher. And I just don't know where that line is of how many times can you 3v2 and actually succeed.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, against the top teams, it might be close to a 3v2, or at least feels like that, or looks like that on paper. But we'll see what happens with Baylor. That's going to be a very interesting school that was really hyped up in the offseason that could fall flat, could end up surprising some people. But moving along, to cap off my top 16, I've got Michigan State above Kennesaw State, which is where you kind of enter in your next 16. But Michigan State, I have always been a fan of. I say that a lot on broadcast. I think Drew is a massive upgrade for them. We still don't know their third just yet. We are going to find out. That's Jimmer's decision as to who their third is between Knock and Morvu. It's been a topic during the offseason. But then on my list, I've got then Fisher, depending on what roster they put out, with Royales really the only confirmed player right now. And I have got that whole like 16 through 24 for me is pretty uncertain.
Yeah, again, the Royales carry on the Fisher side of things also kind of scares me a little bit. Granted, if my memory serves correct, Bepic, I had it written down, but it is not on my notes. It will be Royales, it will be Fouls, and then it will be... I'm trying to remember who I wrote down as a third.
So what I've heard is either Adam or Kevin are
It'll be Kevin
between the two, and I don't think it's certain quite yet. I've heard from a couple different sources that those four names will make up the starting roster, but I don't know if Adam will be included or not.
Yeah, Fisher drops down my list a little bit because from what I have been told in-house, it seems that Adam will not be playing on that Fisher roster. But nothing's set in stone yet until we see final numbers. But I don't know because, again, we get into this point where you have so many teams who are consistent across all three players. Akron Gold is a beautiful example of that, where you have three rank A players across the board. And then you have a mixed team where it's a rank X and a rank B and a B plus. And it's like, where do you draw the line? Royales is really talented. I don't mind 17, but I have them 19 just because, again, the consistency of Kennesaw, Michigan State, and George Mason, I think it's just too much to overcome. But I think Fisher is a beautiful benchmark team in the top 25.
Yeah, I think that will be a good kind of litmus test for a lot of teams and how they play Fisher. But Akron Gold and Kennesaw State, LCU, all teams that we know the cores of, with KSU adding Kronovi to play alongside TNT and Flitz, one of the biggest roster moves of the offseason for how big a name that Kronovi is. And then Beastie joining LCU, I think, is a decent upgrade for them. So I had to put Kennesaw State above Lubbock Christian because at CECC, TNT, Flitz, and Dillon beat LCU. And, even though they've changed thirds, like that head-to-head right there actually eliminated LCU from CECC. So I had to give the Owls the nod there.
I don't disagree. We both agree that Kennesaw State is looking much better than they were last year with the addition of Kronovi. And Curry really couldn't play much to end the semester off, so I can't really blame that Kennesaw roster. But obviously, you bring in somebody like Crow. It's like talking about Garrett. They've been in the scene for so long. They are so competitive. They are so talented. They're going to contribute on day one, no concern there. And then we kind of get a little over the place here in the last 10 or so rankings.
Yeah, so this is where it gets really difficult to rank, I think, because you have a lot of the new teams and also like old teams. Like Missouri is an old roster, but we don't know what their hours are going to look like, with Bubs going in, then out, then back in. And so that's why I put them right there with Indiana Tech, with Syracuse, with St. Edwards, who are teams that I need a larger body of work from to put them higher. Mizzou, I gave kind of the benefit of the doubt, thinking that because they have played together as a trio, that even with low hours, they still could be good, which we've talked about already. But then ETSU, I've been told that Kasai is a demon, and that ETSU should be ranked higher than where I have them. So that's some insight that I have been delivered after posting this. So ETSU might be even scarier than initially thought.
That is also a team that before I post on Twitter, I'm also going to move around. I think them and St. Edwards are my two biggest wild cards because I want to believe in Tater. I want to believe in Landon. But with their previous years, it's hard for me to get around the fact that Davenport Red, Tater's previous team, struggled pretty heavily breaking the top 32, and then ETSU barely even broke the top 48 at times.
Okay,
now, granted,
hold on. I've got something for you. Tater messaged me about this after I posted the rankings. He gave me literally all of the scrim results of St.
Oh my God.
Edwards. So let me talk about that. It is public. It's on his ball chasing account. So this isn't like I'm spoiling anything. These are just scrim results. Everybody take that into consideration. But St. Edwards have won the majority of games against Lubbock Christian, Akron Gold, Indiana Tech. They beat Bruton Parker in a show match on DT's stream, but then also in a scrim lost more games than they won against Bruton Parker. So they're around the same level. They went even with Michigan State and then lost to Cumberland. And this is over the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks. So I think I'll already go ahead and admit, just based on those scrim results, that if we're considering them with a certain weight, that St. Edwards can easily be ranked higher.
I really want, again, I want to believe in Tater, but I just can't bring a power ranking to scrim results. I can't.
Okay.
I'm really excited for St. Edwards, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to sound like an absurd hater. I think I am going to move them up towards that Bruton Parker Akron Gold range, but I don't think I'm going to move them into my top 20, which, again, maybe that's a hot take, and I'd love to be proven wrong, but even with the scrim results, I'm excited for Tater. Love that guy to death. But also going off of scrim results after seeing your team's power rankings, I don't know how much I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Scrims, you can never really use scrims to rank heavily, but I mean, I wasn't sure about St. Edwards. I think that was one of those teams in that same bubble as Syracuse and Indiana Tech, and ETSU as well, for that matter, that I just need to see more of. And those scrims definitely point them in the right direction. But everyone's saying we're sleeping on ETSU, so I think that's a school we're going to have to watch for certain. And these are all teams, everyone keep in mind, that may or may not be playing in some Nightlight show matches this coming week. So do follow me on Twitter for those show matches. George Mason as well, a team that we need a body of work from, considering they're not with memory this month, which is one reason why I put them so low. And then Wichita State right around them. I really don't know what to make Knight is a huge upgrade for Wichita State. I think that bumps them into the top 32, but I don't know how the rest of the team is going to look around him, which is why I'm hesitant to put them higher right now. But still, I think top 32 for both of those schools is a massive change for spring, where they definitely weren't in the top 32.
And again, I keep bringing up this point. I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's the state of CRL. It's another team where you have rank X talent in one or two of the spots, and then just a very questionable kind of team dynamic. Like, I could not sit here and tell you how that George Mason team is going to play. Off first rip, I'm going to expect them to be a slower, more defensive team. And I could totally see that happening. And against CRL, those teams, other than maybe a St. Clair and maybe a Northwood, they don't seem to win that often. So from a statistical standpoint, being in the mix of things, obviously here at Concord, that's how I feel about that roster personally. But I can also see arguments for obviously 25 and 27 on your list versus for me, it is a mix of my kind of bottom 10 to 15 spots. You can make an argument for those three schools to be higher. There's no argument about that. But to the dismay of many Twitter users and many spammers on our accounts, these teams have to prove themselves. And when I make my post, I'm going to stand on it. I know Bepic's already going to stand on it too. These teams have to prove themselves. CRL is an absolute mess right now in terms of talent, but it's in the best way possible that we get so much rank X and rank A level talent in the scene. And whenever you play scrims, whenever you play in show matches, you are just not going to play the same whenever CRL Open 1s turns its head, especially if we get league play qualifiers like I'm praying for. I'm expecting these schools to really flush out under pressure. But again, maybe I'm being too critical, but that's kind of my job as an analyst. And I'm gonna stand on it for now. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
These schools can move up and down, but they gotta prove
it. They will move up and down. Like, the power rankings for the preseason was so hard to do, I think, for both of us. But to run through the last 4 on both of our lists, I saw the question earlier, and I waited until we got to Stockton to talk about it. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that their roster won't be Top Cheese, Deck, and Anthony 8 Pizza, and that's not confirmed yet. They don't play in much. I haven't seen them play in anything since CRL Open 3 and an ECAC Showdown where they lost to, like, King and Nichols State. So I'm not sure what to make of Stockton, but I'm just assuming that they're keeping that same starting roster. St. Clair Gold, we found earlier Kipper did graduate, but I still think they're going to be a top 32 threat because they looked so good during pre-jump. And then my last two are Ball State Black, which I believe the starting lineup is Variety, Phoebes, and Yags is the starting three, which I think is a super underrated lineup. So that's why I put them in the top 32. And then San Diego State, that last spot, I just didn't know what to do with. So San Diego State with Azap, Sean B, and 5 stars, I figured have the best looking resume when it comes to the teams I was moving in and out of that last spot. So that's where I stand right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. My big sleeper school, and I know that Ball State fans are going to come at me for this. I love that team. I love when Variety played on the roster last year, but Variety is going to now sub for the A team. And that means that, yes, that Ball State roster that you just mentioned with their new recruits will be correct. I pick Leslie as my big sleeper for the top 32. I have a lot of faith in Swaz and Kalat. I really, really love that duo, and they've looked impressive anytime I've watched that roster. So I know I'm going to catch flack for it. But also based on how Stockton did last year and based on the fact that their roster is not confirmed yet, I am totally okay with Ball State Black being number 33 on my list and Stockton potentially dropping below all 3 of those teams. But that's where I get off the trail of what's normal for takes, so I'm going to stop there.
No, I think Leslie is a good shout. That was also one of the rosters I was looking at putting in my top 32. But we'll have our top 48 next week once we have maybe some more results and show matches to look at to see where these new teams and how good they can be. But some Twitch chat highlights, as you all should get one last look at the power rankings before I take them off your screen. Chippy said Top Cheese graduated and retired, and Chip said that Stockton said they were all seniors last year, so maybe Stockton won't be in the top 32 with the same roster. Stock doesn't say anything in CRL. I never see them around, so I did not know where to look.
Well, that was the Kentucky drama.
Yeah.
The senior point only came from the Kentucky drama, so they don't really tweet or really get on their socials as much at all. So that's not on either one of us because we were not watching that drama outside of Bluegrass Week. which I don't even want to get on that topic right now. So we can keep things moving along. That was our power rankings.
Well, we got 3 minutes left before I wanted to wrap up. So let's end by shouting out Syracuse. Tiz is in chat giving us some actually good insight into some of these teams, saying ETSU should be ranked a lot higher, which was the general consensus. And Syracuse, I think, when I watched them, the one time I've really seen them when they were playing on my stream against Bruton Parker, I believe. It was a 4-2 win for BPCU. It's Bruton Parker Christian University now, everyone, so keep that in mind. Syracuse looked good against BPCU, but I didn't think they were quite there yet of a top 20 team. So that's why I've got them at top 24. I think they're going to be around the top 15 to top 25 rank throughout the season. And I think as they develop as a lineup, they are going to climb up the ranks. They just need the results to show for it, considering they have changed out the majority of the team around Gababy. So in that same pool of teams that have changed out the majority of their cores, and I just need a better resume from to bump up the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, Syracuse also left a lot to be wished for in terms of the colleague pre-jump as well, which I really hate it that the only results we can really pull from are show matches from the last month and then pre-jump, which was almost 2 months ago. So again, for all of your power ranking needs, I pray that before you come for us, really go look at that top 48 and try and make it yourself, because it is very confusing. It took me and Bepic way too much time, and hopefully all of our answers will hopefully start to come into play once we get to that CRL announcement. We kind of get to go from there, and when we start league play for NACE and NECC and etc. Basically everything but ECAC. So we'll just have to see, and Scenic City will answer those questions as well.
All right, well, I think that about does it. We're going to skip our Scholastic Minute for this week just because we are going to have an episode of Collegiate Exclusive next week where we can talk about the same topic. It's not time sensitive or anything like that. So I'm going to advertise my Nightlights Invitational real fast because that is coming up in about 11 minutes time. So here you go. The schedule once again, it's cut off, whatever. The production's not perfect here. UNC Charlotte versus Texas A&M starting in 11 minutes. And then Maryland versus San Diego State. The losers play, then the winners play. And this is all best of fives as part of the Collegiate Conference Series season. Somber, Feisty Taquito, Borky, and Nation will be on the call with me for those 4 matches. So everyone, stay tuned. Or if you're on TJ's stream, come over to my stream. As I believe you've got something else going on, TJ. Real quick, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I will give a little bit of a teaser to next week's episode. During the Scholastic Minute, we're going to talk about Division 1. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there because there's a lot of contentious points on Twitter, a lot of good and a lot of bad about it, comparing it to PEC. We're going to tackle all of that next week alongside the results of our Twitter accounts, hopefully being banned after the responses to our power rankings. Just that way I just, don't have to get my notifications blown up. So regardless, we'll see how the community reacts to that. We'll talk about power rankings. We'll keep things moving, and we're getting closer and closer to all of those big lands as well. We got DC. We got Crack Gaming's. Those 2 virtual events / lands for DC. It's a hybrid event. We got DC, we got Cracked, we got Scenic City. All of that coming up. We're going to talk about it soon.
All right, well, that does it for this episode of Collegiate Exclusive. Everyone, right now, if you use Spotify, go follow us there and rate us 5 stars. That's your homework for the evening. And then your other assignment is much more fun. Stay tuned for the Nightlights Invitational as part of the CCS non-conference play as part of Season 7. And that does it for our podcast. We'll see you next week for the next episode. Follow us on social media, all right? All right, see you later.